Imagine a garden that feels like a memory, where every path, color, and scent was composed to slow you down and make the ordinary feel extraordinary. What if your home could be that gentle masterpiece, alive with seasonal color and quiet craftsmanship? A warm breeze lifts the scent of roses as you stand before the cottage, sunlight warming the honeyed stone beneath your palms. The garden feels like a long, familiar hug where lavender hums softly and delphiniums nod in the breeze. You wander the gravel path, shoes crunching, and every corner reveals a softer intimacy, an honest, lived-in calm where blooms drift like watercolor and time loosens its grip, inviting slow conversation and gentle afternoons. Stepping along the brick side, morning light slices diagonally across the porch and paints everything with a golden hush, while the white roses spill down like confetti from a joyous summer party. You pause on an oak bench beneath an old oak, feeling sheltered and quietly celebrated. The garden's geometry makes room for wandering thoughts, and the thatch and tiles above feel like a familiar hat, comforting and perfectly worn in. Entering the rear garden beneath clipped yew, the world contracts to green rooms and the gentle symmetry of paths, where a stone urn whispers like an old friend at the center. The borders hum with layered whispers, silvers, violets, and warm pinks that create a soft soundtrack for afternoon light. It's the kind of space that asks you to sit, breathe, and watch bees weave small miracles among the blossoms, utterly content and slow. From the raised beds, you look down over a kitchen garden that tastes like home. Sage, thyme, and lavender edging neat stone beds as bees argue over breakfast. Sunlight fans across the espalier apples and bright soil, and you can almost smell soups and stews that will be made here. The scene is industrious and tender at once, a practical poem where beauty and utility hold hands and promise simple, honest nourishment. The narrow flagstone passage feels secret, a miniature voyage between two worlds where wisteria and lavender trade shadows and perfume. Light slants in warm ribbons, making the stone glow, while your steps are accompanied by rustling leaves and the distant cluck of the garden stirring awake. It's intimate but generous, a corridor of small surprises that leads you toward a wild, promising gate and the feeling that anything lovely might be waiting beyond. Walking through the rose-covered pergola, petals rain softly in your hair, and the path becomes a slow, fragrant procession. You move under a canopy of color and feel wrapped in a living celebration. The air is thick with warmth and the busy, contented hum of insects, and as the cottage appears ahead, framed like a treasured painting, the moment feels suspended, utterly private, endlessly generous, as if the garden itself is leaning in to tell you a secret. You crouch to study the stone corner, fingertips finding the moss and worn edges while the wisteria above drips lilac sweetness into the air, and for a breath the world is exquisitely small and perfect. The textures speak to craftsmanship and age. Every groove is a memory. Sunlight sharpens a stone, but the planting softens it back into comfort, and you feel that rare hush where old things and new feelings sit together in easy company. Seen across the meadow, the cottage seems both distant and personal, a charming punctuation in a field of movement where grasses and flowers sway like a slow choir. The air is wide and open, speckled with insects and soft bird calls, and walking the unmade paths feels like returning to a source of quiet joy. The house is a warm promise at the edge of that freedom, steady and inviting under the late light. Stepping through the courtyard arch, the world tightens into a private little theater where scents and textures perform for you alone. Stone underfoot holds cool from morning, and the plantings press close in a comforting, almost conspiratorial embrace. The birdbath murmurs and the walls wrap you with a protected sense of belonging, a place designed for small confidences, tea sipped slowly, and conversations that stretch like afternoon shadows. You stand just outside the porch, close enough to feel the oak doors grain under your fingertips, and the air smells faintly of lavender and old wood, anchoring calm. The iron hinges seem to carry stories, and the step is worn by countless gentle comings and goings. Sunlight pools on the threshold and invites you in, suggesting domestic warmth, slow afternoons with a book, and the quiet glow of being exactly where you belong. Following the long double border toward the cottage, you're swept by waves of color that feel like a conversation between heat and cool, each side answering the other with confidence and grace. The path leads as much inward as forward, and every turn reveals a new note, fragrant, soft, bright, that draws you closer to the house's welcoming silhouette. It's a moving, living composition that feels both deliberate and happily accidental, like a well-told story. Floating above the estate, the layout reads like a comforting map of intention and informality, and seeing it as a whole makes your chest ease. Everything has its place, without feeling fussy. The sunny roofs and planted rooms stitch together a life that's both structured and wild, where hedges hold secrets and meadows keep summers long. From this angle you can sense the choreography of daily life, slow and attentive, and imagine living at the center of such gentle order. Leave the idea of perfection behind and keep the principle. Design with patience, local materials, and layered planting to create rooms that breathe. When structure and softness converse, everyday life becomes a lived poem, tender, purposeful, and endlessly welcoming.